Okay, this is the Brown Duke Gun Show. My name is JP Garcia, here today with Brandon, Elias. Austin is out making deadlocks and gas locks. I'm going to call him out again, second week in a row, forgot about us, but that's okay. We'll see you next time. That means he's got to buy breakfast.
He's doing all the actual work.
Yeah, that's true. You and I are just jaw jacking. He's actually doing something. Hey, load some ammo too while you're at it, okay?
Yeah, it's right next to it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just start the press running. Anyway, I want to take time in the very beginning here to point out our friend of the show, Blake Miguez, is running for U.S. Senate. We've talked about him on the show a lot, and we just want to be supportive of our friend. He is not just our friend, but he is a very strong two-way advocate. Really, you can't find anybody better from a two-way perspective for firearms rights and all of those types of things. He'll be a great representative for us in the U.S. Senate, and I think you guys should support him. You can find his campaign stuff on his social media platforms, Blake Miguez LA on Instagram for sure, and X also. You can find ways to donate or support in other ways should you choose to. Please donate to the campaign. Please support him. Share it with your friends. There are very few folks that we can point to as true Second Amendment advocates, and Blake's one of them.
Yeah, definitely biggest pro 2A supporter that I know in the politic world. And also like true to his values too. Mm-hmm. Like he's one of those politicians that no matter what happens, like he's always going to stay true to what he believes in.
Absolutely.
And knowing him as a personal friend, even before politics, and like he was still a politician at the time, but our kids grew up together and all that stuff. And there's times where I'm like, man, like I wish that this would happen. And he's like, nope, like this is what's going on. No matter who comes in and tries to sway his ideas and different things, like he always stays true to his values and fights for the people for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And so great advocate. I think we're biased. Clearly he's our buddy. He is also not just a 2A advocate in talk. Clearly you and I know if you're in the IPSC and USPSA world, he's a national champion, world champion shooter, a very proficient elite, level firearm shooter. So, doesn't get any better than that. I think guys, go out, support him, share, do whatever it is you can do. And let's get him elected.
Yep.
So, today, speaking of two-way topics, something that people talk about all the time, and I think it's probably time we address it now that it's summer, kids are home, firearm safety around children and how to get children involved, right?
Yeah, it's always a huge topic, and we get so many questions at the range about it, and it's like, how do I get my kids involved? Or during concealed carry classes, they'll say, hey, I just got this gun, but I also have kids, and they're really worried about it, right? Mm-hmm. How do I introduce them into guns and make sure that they're safe around it, make sure they don't mess around with it?
Right.
And then they also see my daughter at the range. I mean, she grew up there since she was whenever I opened the range, she was 1.
Yeah,
so,
right.
People that have been lifelong members, they've seen her grow up, and now she's 9. So we've been there for quite a while, and she'll still walk up front or whatever. And the other day she was helping me bring machine guns from the safe room into the showroom, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
There have people that never been to the range, and they're walking up and they're like, what is this 9-year-old doing with a CZ Scorpion machine gun?
Right.
Why does she have a UMP? She's holding safe direction, finger off the trigger and all that stuff. And they're just amazed, how do you let your kid mess around with guns? And she's been around loaded firearms and that she's had access to, I guess you could say, since she was probably I'd probably say 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And people would call me crazy for it, and it's yeah, but she's different. She's definitely a different kid,
right,
than everybody else's. So it's just that she grew up in that environment. So we get a lot of questions of how you did that, and she speaks for it, right? I didn't just come up with this and this is how you should do it. It's there's a reason why we suggested that away, is because it's worked for me, and it's just a suggestion of what can work for you.
Sure, certainly. Well, and I think you say that your daughter is an outlier, and she is, right? Yeah. I mean, not every kid is going to grow up in a gun range,
right? 100%.
But I think it is also evident that given that she's now 9 years old, and she's been around firearms her whole entire life, right? And she's able to handle firearms in a safe manner. And I dare say that she's able to handle firearms in a more safe manner than a lot of adults.
I'd say like 95% of adults that walk into the range, I'm much rather trust her than anyone else.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Right.
Because they can't even move around with the gun.
Correct. Yeah. And it gets down to fundamentals, which we'll talk about, is that, she knows how to keep her finger off the trigger.
Yep.
Right. And she knows not to point guns at people.
Yep. She knows the two safe directions. That's the biggest thing. It's like people, they usually point guns in a safe direction, like at the range if they're staying on a firing line, but they can't move out of the firing line. Right. We see it all the time in competition shooting. The second they get into competition shooting and have to move with the gun, like take more than 1 or 2 steps, they get DQ'd because they're pointing in an unsafe direction.
Correct.
Right. Because they're not pointing at a trap, or they're pointing at other people, or they start moving around with the gun.
Right.
She was taught at a very young age, whenever you move around with the gun, the safe direction is up or down. Like that's where you point guns at. Competition shooting is different. That's a different way that you point the gun. But just for everyday things, if you're walking from room to room in your house, or you're getting the gun out the car, moving to the firing line, or wherever it might be, there's usually 2 safe directions. And I was very adamant on teaching her that and making sure she can handle guns in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the fundamental concept there is that there is a concept of something called safe direction.
Yeah.
Right. And wherever you define safe direction is what the shooter has to follow. The kid, or adult has to follow and understand. And if you don't know where the safe direction is, you need to ask.
Yep.
Right. And then the other thing, of course, clearly keeping your finger off the trigger. I mean, her trigger discipline is great because she's been trained since birth, basically, to have great trigger discipline, And I think we are, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here in, child safety and firearms. I think the first thing you need to talk about, or we need to talk about and address, is securing your firearms, right? Because most children, my children included, are not as proficient in firearms as yours, right? Because your daughter grew up in a gun range. So to that end, securing your firearms, having a safe place for them that children, particularly the ones who don't have any sort of training or instruction around it,
and they might be older.
Correct.
Too. They might be 15-year-old kids that you don't trust with firearm.
Correct.
And they might be some kids that might never be able to be trusted with firearms, right? If they have different disabilities or whatever it might be, like you might say, hey, they always have to have adult supervision while doing that, So definitely storage is a very important part. I remember at one time where I had to pick up the gun every night. So like I had to keep a rifle for home defense and it sits next to the bedside. Every night I'd have to put it out, and every morning before I woke up, I had to pick it up and put it in a safe direction. Correct. Like somewhere where she could not pick it up and she couldn't mess around with it. So I had to do that for a long period of time until I finally trusted her into, hey, I can leave it out, right? Like I don't have to do that anymore. But that's all up to your trust and like where they're at. There's no one that can tell you like, hey, yeah, it's a safe time. If you don't feel comfortable with it, then don't do it. Right. Like you have to continue picking up the gun and making sure it's in a secure spot for that. There's different safes that you can put out there that's like quick access if you don't want to deal with it as much, to where you can put it next to the bedside and you just like pass like a little magnet thing or something over it to like open it. Those are great. And you don't have to worry about picking it up and putting it down every time. Another thing to worry about is like other people coming into your house.
That's a big point.
So if it's always out and you might trust your kids, then if you have friends over, then like if they have friends over, you have to make sure they don't go into your room. Or if they have access to your house, like you have to make sure you pick up that gun. Right. So like, that's a concern that I still have and I will always have because like you never know who's coming in and out of your house. So if you or if she has friends over, I make sure like she knows they don't go in the bedroom. And if they do have friends over, and even if I'm not like right there, then I have to go and pick up that gun and put it somewhere else.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to say that, especially when you have children around coming over that aren't your children, right? But be it relatives, friends, however, you have to be real cognizant about the situation, because just like in a self-defense situation, your situation is always changing, right? And so, the rules that you may have for having your daughter home and you two by yourselves are completely different than if you're having a birthday party
Right.
at the house for some reason or whatever you're doing, those rules change, and you have to think about that beforehand. And so it may be securing those firearms in a safe, or be it one of those traditional safes or a quick access safe, or if your children aren't really walking, putting them in a high place where they certainly can't reach it or something like that.
And I'm not like I think about that stuff too. Like, obviously people know what I do. They know the business that I'm in. So if they come over to the house, they're gonna expect that I have firearms there, right? Like,
yeah.
If they someone sees a gun, they're not gonna freak out because they're like, oh, I'm with the gun guy, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes that's not an easy conversation to have. Like, you might have friends that are against guns, and like, you don't want to have that conversation with them at a party, like,
right?
So it's just easier if all the guns are put away and you don't have to worry about it. Like,
Correct.
Be a safest direction, but also maybe if you don't want them to know that you have firearms.
Correct.
So.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that's, the step one. Let's figure out whatever it is your strategy is for storing the guns, in a safe manner, right? And be that safe, a safe or, a place that's covert and out of reach that, nobody has access to. Let's you guys iron that out first, right? And then where these safe places where these guns are, and then that your kids cannot get into them when you don't want them to be. Not just your kids, but other people's kids too.
Yep.
Right. So because there are, different kids are going to be different levels of street savviness, right?
Yeah.
In a sense, right? Some people aren't going to know how to get into the safe. Some people are just going to start punching in numbers.
Yep.
So,
and it doesn't even have to be a safe. Like, if you can't afford a safe, a lockbox, like,
absolutely.
I mean, like a toolbox that locks in from Lowe's or whatever. Like, we have gun cabinets at the shop. Those are great. Like, they're kind of pricey also, but they look like a locker, like a school locker, and it just locks. So it's anything like that. It doesn't have to be fire rated or anything. It's just trying to keep kids and people that should not be messing with them out of the safe.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. So now that they're secured, safe, and out of reach until you want them to be, right? How do you introduce children to firearms?
So I would say, like, if they have any interest, that's a good thing. Do not ever not let them see the firearm. Right. So, like, if there's any time where a kid comes to you and says, hey, I want to see this gun, stop whatever you're doing, go and get the gun, make sure it's unloaded, obviously, and like hand it to them. Like, put it in their hands. Like, are they going to be like amazed at it? Yes. Are they going to point at you? Probably so. They're going to put their finger on the trigger. They're going to do all the things they should not be doing. Right. But keep correcting them. Like, say, hey, take your finger off the trigger. Hey, make sure you point in that direction. They're not going to know that they're actually learning something that by doing that, but they're going to continue doing it the same way each and every time. Right. So that way it becomes a habit. Right. So make sure it's a safe habit that they're building, not a bad habit.
Correct.
And the reason why I say, like, don't not let them see the gun, because curiosity is going to build and they're going to do it without you. Right. So, like, you want them to do it with you to where you can correct them. Right. And it takes the curiosity out of it. Like, if Ellie comes over and sees a gun on this table, she does not care about that gun whatsoever. Right. It's like a pencil on a table to her. Like, there's no excitement about it. She's just like, whatever. Like, my dad has a gazillion guns. Like, I'm not worried about this. I've seen every gun possible. So she's not going to be amazed at it. But there's some kids that are amazed, and that's the ones that you kind of have to worry about, right? Yeah. You have to make sure that all the guns are locked up and they're not playing around with them. So definitely let them see it. Let them play with it. Some people don't think that's a great idea either. They're like, oh, well, I'm not just going to hand a gun over to my 5-year-old. It's like, no, you need to. Like, you need to let them see it and play around with it, because they're going to kill all the curiosity. Like, if you don't, that's going to be always the thing that they're going to want to do. Right. But make sure it's unloaded, obviously.
You do it in a safe manner.
Yeah, in a safe manner. You're doing it in a safe manner. But you're trying to make it like a normal household item. Right. I always tell people, like, especially people that's never had guns before and they just now buy a firearm and they're an adult, right? And they're like deathly afraid of it. Like, they buy a gun because they think they need it, but then they're deathly afraid of this thing, and they're taking over precautions most of the time. Right. And I said, hey, like, whenever you walk into your kitchen and you see like all your kitchen knives in the block, do you get scared? And they're like, no, like, that's stupid, right? I'm like, okay, same thing with a gun. Like, it's just a tool. Like, can a kitchen knife kill you? Absolutely. But do you walk around your kitchen with a knife and like cut stuff and like have it in your hands? They're like, yeah. It's like, okay, the gun's the same way. Like you could have the gun in your hand. You have to make sure the muzzle's pointed up, your fingers off the trigger. Like you don't grab the knife by the blade and run around with it down the stairs.
Right.
Like,
or pointing at people.
Pointing at people. Like you don't do those things. So like as a very young age, you grew up knowing like, hey, a knife is dangerous, but there's a safe way in handling it, right? Same thing with a gun. So as long as you break through that habit and you know how to handle it, you know what the dangerous parts of it is, then you never have any accidents, right?
Right.
You treat it the same way each and every time.
Yeah.
So do that for your kids. Like, don't let them think like a gun is this big, scary, thing that you should never touch, because then they're going to want to touch it more.
Right.
But teach them the safe way in doing it instead of like completely shunning them from it.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I've started when Nerf guns and stuff like that come out, it's like, okay, well, yeah, muzzle and safe direction. We don't shoot people.
100%.
So there are targets that can be shot.
Yep.
We do not shoot people.
Yep.
Right. And you teach them, okay, well, this is a muzzle safe direction. And so my daughter actually asked me maybe 2 weeks ago, well, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to do that? And so, and what are the parts of the gun called? And so what I did, I took the Nerf rifle that she had and I brought her to the safe and I opened up and I put a real rifle beside it. I said, these are kind of the same thing. And this is the barrel. This is the grip. This is the stock. This is how you hold it. And this is how you put it up. So, and you go over that. And the one thing I wanted to drive home too is that, okay, this is a toy and this is not a toy. These are what they look like and they're different, but you still need to treat them the same way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like people would give Ellie like gifts for her birthday and stuff like that with Nerf guns and laser guns and stuff. And like we would accept them, but like she could never play with them alone. And she's an only child, so like it's a little bit easier because she doesn't have someone to like go and play Nerf wars with and shoot each other with. But that if I had another child, it would be the same thing. Like you could not play airsoft or Nerf gun wars and shoot each other with it. Like she had laser tag guns with laser tag little things that you're supposed to wear, and me and her would play it, but I would put the laser tag targets on the shelf.
Right.
So we wouldn't shoot each other. We'd shoot the laser tag targets that were on the shelf. Right. So you can do things like that and make sure like, hey, anytime you want to play with this, you can play with your guns, but I have to be there. That's how I thought about doing it. And because I didn't think at that early of an age, I mean, she was like 3 or 4 years old, that she can make the difference between a real gun and a fake gun.
Sure.
So everything was a real gun to me. Right. So we always pointing in safe direction. We always have our finger off the trigger. And I teach her like, how to walk around with a firearm and like even bounding to a certain extent, like, tactical bounding with another person, with, laser guns, right? Like we'd hide behind the couch, we'd get up, we'd, have cover fire for each other while the other person is bounding. And while they were bounding, her finger had to be off the trigger and the muzzle had to be pointed up and she had to bound around me. Okay. Right? And then get to another position and she would go down and she'd start laying cover fire for me. And then I'd, communicate to her like, hey, I'm moving. And then she'd go back at like 4 years old. Yeah. So like, it was crazy. People were like, I can't believe you're teaching your kid that. But it was kind of funny because like she was learning tactics, but the main thing she was learning is safety.
Sure.
Right. She's learning how to move around with the gun in a safe manner, making sure her finger's straight and muzzle's pointing in a safe direction. And now she can do that with a real firearm and she can help me move machine guns from the safe onto the showroom floor without pointing at people while they have customers in the range. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's crazy that people think like, oh, it's a 9-year-old that's moving machine guns. Like this is insane. It's like, no, at 4 years old, she was learning this. So like, it's not just didn't happen overnight, but there's ways that you can do it to make it fun for them. That's not just like always a job. Yeah. Like that's another very important thing people ask about. Like, how do you get your kids involved into it is making sure that it stays fun for them. You never want it to be like, hey, you have to learn how to shoot this gun right now. Right. They're not going to want to do it. Right. Like make it exciting for them. If it's Nerf guns, if it's laser tag guns at first, then bring them out, shoot 22s and shoot stuff that moves, like shoot steel targets or cans or BB guns in the backyard with cans that like, move around. That's very fun for them. Then they can move up to a real gun like a 22 and shoot targets and stuff. So keep it fun for them, keep it energetic, and almost like a carnival game. You know, like do stuff like that.
Well, and I think that's where, this thing, I put this on the desk because, I think this is where this thing comes into play, right? The AceVR, with the kids, AceVR is just the example that I have here, but those types of games where you have the laser shot in the range, or AceVR that puts them in a realistic simulation.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing with airsoft, where you can start to exercise those rules. And one of the things we do is we do this airsoft match for the kids at the Heart Camp, right? And driving home the rules for the kids, I always have this little mini lecture every time we start. Like, okay, who's done this before? Who remembers the rules? And, and all the kids will say, okay, keep your muzzle pointed down range or in a safe direction, and don't point guns at people. And what happens if we don't do that? Well, you have to stop, right? And so you just drive it home. Okay, this is just like anything now. It's okay, and actually I probably annoy the kids by every time before I put the airsoft gun in the hand, I say, what are the rules?
They recite the rules.
They have to recite the rules. Muzzle in safe direction, don't point guns at people. What happens if you break the rules? I got to stop. Okay, boom. So then you just drive it, and every time they take reps, they just they do it, and kids can be taught.
Yeah, they can.
And
Easy.
they can be safe. Now, the more excited they get, the harder it is to keep them.
Yeah, to reel them in.
To reel them in. But especially in the beginning, they're really dialed in, and if you drive those fundamentals home, they tend to be safer than you would expect them to be.
Yeah, and you just have to be patient. Like, that's another big thing that I see. Like, that people that are not teachers or not instructors, they're not patient, right? Like, so if they do something else for a living and they teach their kid anything, they're like, you need to do it right now. And it's like, no, like, a kid has a very short attention span. So you have to like get whatever you can right away. I think I just kicked the camera, but get whatever you can right away. And then like, whenever they start losing focus, like you have to change something, like make sure they go back into focus, be very patient with them. And if you have to stop, start another day, be like, oh, let's do something else. You know? But don't let them get bad habits from the get-go. That's a big thing.
For sure. Well, and here's another thing to say is that this is the time of all times, right, for a shooter, because this is a problem for shooters, right? Or gun people. I not even say shooters, gun people. Now is the time to be honest with yourself. If you don't know, then get help.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not try to make things up on the fly when we're teaching kids about gun safety. Right. If you don't know, let's get that child or children into a class with a professional.
Yep.
Right. Let's not try to make it up or look it up on the internet or something like that.
Because they're going to catch you. Like, you're going to say something and they're going to like say, oh, well, this is gospel, right? Like, I got to like go with this. And if you change that, they're going to be like, wait, you just now said that, right? So like, be very careful of what you tell them. Sometimes less is more. Have you ever heard that? So like, make sure that you're teaching them the right things and you're not teaching them things that you have to change later on.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Like, rules that are fungible, right?
Yeah.
No, you got to give them exact finger off the trigger. It's a rule.
Yeah, it's a rule. And like, you're always going to follow that, right? Like, you're never going to say like, oh, well, now that you know a little bit more, then we're going to change this. Because the second you do that, now like all those rules that you created they're out the window. Yep. They're no good anymore, right? Because like, if we can bend this rule, we can bend all the rules.
Correct.
Right. So it's like, no. You have to do it this way.
Right.
So try to teach them. And there's a plan, like it's a curriculum, right? Like whenever I build a curriculum to teach someone in private lessons, or whether it be a class, like concealed carry, like it didn't just happen overnight. Like there's a reason why we do it this way and go over it that way. And there's a reason why we use certain words. And there's a reason why we talk about it this way, is because later on it's going to build up to that, right? It's building blocks. It's not just throwing information out there and hoping that it sticks.
Right.
So that's what separates like an instructor or a teacher from someone that's a buddy that's just like, he knows what he knows right now. He's trying to teach you on this level, but he doesn't understand that the person that he's teaching is at a different level. Correct. Right. And he has to bring him up to that level.
Yeah. The other thing to know is that it's hard to know that if you have blind spots or not, right? Insofar as if you're not really super familiar with firearms and firearm safety, you could teach them bad habits, and you may think you're correct, but you may be incorrect. And then you just pass down these bad habits to kids who don't know any better, and they're just going to trust you. Right. And then later in life is when they're going to have to fix that. Right. And it's like, now's the time to swallow your pride, Get somebody professional. If you're not comfortable with it, or if you're not proficient, go teach, get somebody to teach them. And if you have any questions, then you're not ready. You need to have somebody teach them. Right?
I mean, and
that's okay.
Like
that's
in school work, right? Like, you're in class and like you're learning this skill, right? Like you're learning algebra 3, like, and you're gonna try to teach another student. Would you rather that, or would you rather like a college professor with a doctorate teach that student?
Correct.
Like they're gonna learn a lot more because that college professor that has a doctorate understands teaching in a whole, and understands like, hey, I got to get them from this point to that point, and understands the whole world about it, not just this one specific thing.
Correct.
About that, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you want to happen. You want an instructor that understands everything about it. And if you know everything about it, then that's great. Like, teach your kid. But if you don't, then make sure that you're trying to find someone that does do that.
Right.
I was very fortunate enough, like last week or the week before, the person who taught me pistol shooting, he was my uncle. He's an air marshal. And whenever I was about like 9 or 10 years old, we went to where they live at, and we had a whole like 2 days on the range. And like he taught me how to actually shoot a pistol, right? Like a handgun. And they're very like, that's their primary weapon. So like he had a lot of training, and he's actually a trainer for them now and stuff. So I was very fortunate enough at a very young age to learn how to shoot a handgun from that person, right?
Right.
And now we kind of laugh because like now I'm a GM and like taking this way farther. And last time he came in, he's like, man, now I need you to teach me some stuff, right? So like we had a whole day on the range, and like I taught him a couple of things, which was really cool. But what's even better this year, his son, Matt, is now in college, and he's going to a military college, and he's wanting to join the military, and I don't know what branch he's going to be in yet, but he's starting to get interest in shooting and like wanting to get more proficient in firearms. And I was able to spend a whole 2 days with him on the range, like teaching him, right? So
Come
it's like,
on over.
Handing down the whole torch and everything, like passing it along. So that was like a fulfillment thing in my life. It's like, man, the person that taught me how to shoot guns, I was able to teach his kid now, right?
For
and
sure.
he was there, and like he's an instructor, right? He's a full instructor for a federal agency, and like he completely stepped away and went into another booth. He's like, Brandon got this, like, go with it, because sometimes it's not good to go and teach. I mean, he still does teach his kids, and his kid does listen to him because he knows that how he has a whole grasp on this, and he's a very good instructor. But sometimes it's good to let other people have their input into your kid or whatever it might be.
Well, I mean, this as well as I do as a parent, right? There are going to be times, and more often than not, that your kids are not going to listen to you, even if you're correct.
Yep. Even if you're correct. Like, thankfully right now, my daughter is still listening for the most part. But I know there's going to come a time where she's not going to listen, and I'm going to have somebody else have to teach her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so then it comes the value of having an outside instructor teach them, because even if you're the one who taught them, right, then it's like even better, because you know exactly what they're teaching them. Okay. But it just comes from somebody else's mouth. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yep. And so that a lot of times is just, that's the separation that you need for the kids to be able to compartmentalize or absorb what is being taught, And so, again, it's another thing. Don't be too proud to have an instructor.
Yeah.
Never.
And like I would definitely want somebody else to teach my kid. Like if you can bring something else, like do that. Like Blake's taught Ellie stuff before. Like we all went out and shoot, and we've had both of our kids there, and like I taught something to his daughter and vice versa, going back and forth. I mean, Max is always around, so Ellie loves to see Max. We haven't had like a range day yet, but like, if one day that's gonna happen, it's like, hey, Max, can you like show her some stuff, and like she's gonna be all eyes on him and making sure that she follows all of his rules.
Right.
So never. The more information they receive, the better it usually is, as long as you validate those instructors.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, for sure. So, okay. So we've talked about storage. We've talked about, I guess, approaching, gun safety and how, different ways that we've done it with our children. I guess what else do we need to talk about with regard to gun safety for children?
Yeah, it's some of the things like we kind of talked on it before is like, don't make it a job for them. So another bad thing I constantly hear is like, well, they got to learn the hard way first before they get the prize. right? Like, oh, they got to learn how to clean the gun before they go and shoot it. And it's like, no kid wants to go in there and clean the gun.
No
like,
way.
You know, like make it exciting.
Or load ammo.
Yeah, load ammo. Like, you know, like do all the bad things first. And they're like, oh, they got to learn iron sights. So they like discourage them in shooting.
Right.
Or they give them a gun they should not be shooting. That's another common mistake.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Here's a 12 gauge shotgun, you know, go and shoot that. And like, no kid wants to shoot a 12 gauge shotgun. Like, I don't want to shoot a 12 gauge shotgun as an adult.
Right.
Like, I hate that thing.
Yeah.
You know, so like, shoot something easy. Shoot like a 22 or a BB gun or something that's
airsoft BB gun.
Success with. Like, put the target very close, make the target very big to where they definitely hit the target and they feel good about it. They're like, oh man, this is exciting, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be just a kid. It can be anybody you take to the range, but especially kids. Make sure that they have instant success and they're enjoying it. That's a very good thing to do.
Yeah. So the one good thing about AceVR, there are a lot of good things about AceVR, but one of the good things is they have a zombie mode, right? Which is, we brought this on vacation with us to Lake Michigan, and so had all the kids playing it. And it was a big time for them. The zombie mode was interesting because if you get a headshot on the zombie, it would take him out. Otherwise, you need to take 4 or 5 shots on him, you know? And so, you know, having them have a little bit of discipline in their sights and pulling the trigger and all of that stuff is like, oh yeah, look, that's teaching them something, you know? So that it was where it's not just a thing where you spray bullets. There's a precision aspect to it. There's a control aspect to it where, you know, a lot of times maybe the perception around firearms is that you just start pulling the trigger and going crazy like John Wick, you know, where it's real in real life, it's not like that, right? You have to have control. You have to have, you know, certain fundamentals to be able to have the shots go where you want them to. But it's also a fun thing because they're shooting zombies, right? Like, oh, I'm going to get the highest score. And well, how do you get the highest score? Well, you have to hit the most people. And they figured out real quick that, okay, if I shoot everybody in the head, more zombies pop out. And then I'm going to have more chances to get the higher score. So you gamify it.
Yeah, game it. Yep. And another thing they can, like, I want to kind of like put in some people's heads that they might have an issue with or like might want to keep in mind is like, what targets are they shooting to? Right. So like in games, a lot of times they're already shooting other people. Right. Like, you know, zombies or like Call of Duty where they're shooting other bad guys or whatever. But like sometimes if you're going to like a actual firearm, people might not want their kid to shoot humanized silhouettes, right? So like if it has a head on it, then they might want to just go with a bullseye target or like a classic target like in USPSA, or especially a face. Like if you have a face that's on the target, that might not be a thing that you want them to do until a certain age. Right. The FBI has done tons of research on this, like whenever, and even in Vietnam, we've done research on it, where all of our qualifying targets were bullseye targets. And then they're having issues with people getting into the field and they're having hesitation with pressing the trigger on an actual person. Right. Because our brains are not programmed to take another innocent life or like take a life period, right? Even if it's not innocent. Because if it was programmed that way, we'd probably be extinct.
Yes.
Right? Like we're not going to want to do that. So we have some type of hesitation in doing so. So in order to break that habit and desensitize ourselves, we started putting like human looking targets or putting faces on targets and starting to break that. Now military has like, I don't know if you've seen like the military, like Marine targets or something. They come and qualify every once in a while. They do not have like an actual digital face. It just has like a little eye and like, you know, a nose and things like that.
I haven't seen it. Yeah.
So they're a B-27 target, but it has like an eye and a nose.
Oh, cool.
So it's not like an actual person. You can't tell who it is. It's just like a stick figure type of face.
Yeah.
But that's to desensitize them to where whenever they get into real life, it does that. Right.
Yeah.
There's a psychological reason of doing it. So as a child, you might say, hey, at a certain age, I need them to learn how to do that to defend themselves, but not right now.
Yeah.
So just keep it up in your mind. And if you want that to happen, then do that. If not, if you don't care about it, then that's up to you.
Well, yeah. So that is a good thing to mention because the AceVR, the zombies are, they're USPSA targets.
Oh, cool.
With, like, you know, with these little, it looks like little fuzzy, I don't know, things on them. They're not, I think at one point they were humans or humanoid, but now they look like USPSA style targets, cardboard with like spray painted stuff on it. You know, so it's very very obvious that it's a
game
thing. Yeah.
And not like an actual person.
Correct. Yeah, and then they also have a drone shooting thing. So you know they're plates on a drone. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So it's definitely not shooting humanoids.
People.
Shooting people. you know, yeah, because like that's the difference between that and Call of Duty is like
Call of Duty, like you actually see like faces and
correct.
stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's blood
like,
and there's like a whole thing. So yeah, that's a different thing. You know,
for sure.
Yeah, you don't want particularly young kids. To get into that, but you know, I've seen that the kids that I've worked with firearms, it's more ubiquitous than maybe I'm comfortable with. I was like, oh yeah, this is just like Call of Duty, and it's like, oh no, it's nothing like Call of Duty. Like these are real.
Because they match it very, very fast, right? Like you wouldn't think, because it's like, oh, it's a video game with a controller and then a gun, but they match it very, very quickly. So like once you go down that road, like try to steer clear, especially with like gun looking things. Like if you got to hold a gun and press a trigger, like try to keep that separate as long as you possibly can.
I'm gonna out my friend Mike here because I don't know if he's gonna listen to this one or not. He adult, right? I helped teach him to shoot, a while ago. And he had the same thing. It's like, oh, this is just like playing Call of Duty. Like no. Just because there's a red dot on this thing, it's not what you think it is, right? And getting a gun in his hand, firing rounds, and all of that stuff, it was like eye opening. He's like, this is much harder than I thought. It's like, yeah, man, like this is real life. What do you? You
just have to like stabilize the dot.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like, oh man, I didn't realize this was much harder. And it's like, shooting a firearm is very different than playing a video game. And it's hard because, you get desensitized in so many ways. Number one, you think it's much easier, to be safe and handle a gun, number two, it's just like, you're just pointing this gun all which way, there's no safe direction. Everything's a fire target. And then you look at something like, Grand Theft Auto, where you can literally shoot everything. And it's like, oh, that's even worse.
You don't get penalized for shooting the teammates or even point flagging them.
Correct.
Right? Like that's a huge thing. Like you never flag someone that's not a bad guy.
Correct. Yeah.
And they do that all the time in video games.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I think that's some good advice too, is like watch pretty closely the video game content of your children, and understand that, what habits they could be, getting by osmosis in a sense, right, from that video game. It does give you license to play that video game, right? So you go have some fun on that video game. But also then you just figure out like, okay, is this something that I want my 8-year-old to do or my 10-year-old to do? Or, at what age does it make sense, right?
Exactly. So, and that's up to you. Like that's up to your decision. Like we can't make that decision for you. If you say, hey, I want my kid at this age or, 20 years old or whatever, like whatever you feel comfortable with.
Right.
Go with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. My kids have, very strict screen time rules anyway. So the last thing they're going to have are like first person shooter games, so, but they'll have AceVR.
Yeah, that's right. Because I want to have AceVR.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Because I need to have it. So I've practiced with it several times now, and it's like
it's really cool.
It is cool.
It's addictive for sure.
Yeah. What I don't like, and I sent a tweet to them, and they responded, very kindly. I don't like the reloading on it.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of hokey.
Yeah.
At this point, and I think there's nothing they can do about it. It's the best for what they can do.
Like for not having to like actually change out mags, and then if you do have to change out mags, like how many mags you'd have to have and stuff like that.
Exactly. But and then you're trying to reload blind because you're
you can't see it.
You can't actually see it with your eyes.
Yeah. So like I think they did a good job with what they have
for sure.
Yeah. Like
and I think for like if we're talking about kids practice and serious practice here, I think the thing that they can distill, a child can actually distill in skills that'll stay with them. Are like gross trigger skills, right? Because the triggers still are different, right? But I think if you're shooting like a double single gun or like a striker fire gun, this is going to be very close.
Yeah, because if you move that trigger over, it won't hit the target.
Correct.
I noticed that. Yeah.
It's
pretty good at that.
And eye movement. Yeah. Eye movement and like tracking the dot is like this is where the game shines. So if you're trying to teach your children with this, you can for sure go over finger off the trigger, right? You can go over muzzle safety. Now it's easier to do it in that USPSA context, right? Where you're not shooting 360, because the game will actually DQ you if you break the 180.
Yeah.
So, but you can teach them muzzle safe direction with the AceVR. And then also you can teach them some fundamentals of sight alignment and trigger press with it too.
Yep.
So,
I think so. Yeah, it's very good for that. And people ask me all the time, like, how does that substitute for live fire or dry fire or whatever it might be? And it's like, it's another tool.
Yeah.
It doesn't like take over any of those things, right? Like you still have the dry fire to make sure that you can pick up your dot with your gun. You still have the dry fire to do your reloads to make sure you're hitting those. You still have the live fire for recoil control, stance,
like, test your grip, make sure you're doing it right. Yeah.
And like perfect trigger control, because that's all in live fire. But this kind of does something different that, it's another tool that's very useful. Yeah.
The one thing like coming off of the children topic and just more general, it is, if you have a hesitation, the one thing I've noticed is that I have you and I have the opposite hesitation, right? I have a hesitation coming onto steel, and you said that you have a hesitation coming off of the steel, right? And so I'm able to work on coming onto the steel a little bit quicker. I still don't know how it translates to live fire. It's one thing we need to, we need to check out. But getting over that hesitation, because I over confirm, I guess, when I'm coming onto the steel. It
definitely helps me with confirming more, because it's usually like a slight lag.
Yes,
between,
I've noticed that too.
The Bluetooth connection and making sure that whenever you get on steel, you have to pause it and make good confirmation on steel. Where sometimes I'll try to swipe it, and in real life, I'll get away with it if it's closer steel, right? Or a big piece of steel, I'll get away. I'll just swipe over it and kind of I'll still hit the steel. But on this, you won't. Like, you'll miss because it's lagging behind.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of good for me, because on small pieces of steel, I'll end up having a makeup shot on it because I don't confirm.
Right.
Yep.
So,
yeah, it's pretty good for that.
Yeah, I saw there's the plate rack stuff, and I'll sweep a lot of times. I'll sweep through and same thing. It's like that shot would have got. I would have got there.
Yeah, I would have got it.
But but then it's like, okay, stupid. Pause the gun.
Yeah, you got to play the game part.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, but yes, I think those types of tools for kids, be it AceVR, which pretty high on right now, but also other virtual shootings, laser,
guns, Nerf guns.
Nerf is great. Airsoft.
All that stuff's really good for them.
Yeah, for sure. And much less, much more affordable. On the bullet side, and
another thing too, like whenever you start, like if they have interest in this and they're like, oh, this is exciting, and they're starting to like hit the target, like don't turn it into like, oh, you're gonna be the best shooter in the world. Like, don't. I see so many parents or like grandparents or whatever might do that with the kids. Like they get so excited for them. Like, man, they're like really good at this. Like, yeah, they're learning. Like, take it as that. Don't make it a job for them.
Correct.
Right. Like, that's the worst thing that you can do, because all you see it in every other sport. You see it in gymnastics. You see it in martial arts. You see it in whatever. Like, they have some, like, you took martial arts for years.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's a time where you're like, I'm done with it.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this sucks. I've done it for so many years. Same thing with shooting. Like, keep it fun for them. Keep it energetic. Don't like say, oh, well, this is gonna be your job. Like, I want, like, no, you can't make that for your kid. Right.
Yeah.
Like, don't hype them up so much that like, oh, you're the best shooter in the world. We see that a lot of times, like in middle-aged, like teenage things.
Right.
They starting to get some like confidence, and they're like, oh, you're the best shooter ever. And it's like, no, like not yet. Like, let them keep going with this, and then if they
see how it goes,
we'll see how it goes. Like, don't force them into something.
Right.
And that's a bad thing that a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And it's like, the main thing you're trying to work on is safety, to where they can carry. That's a lifelong skill they can always have.
Right.
Make sure that they can handle a gun in a safe manner, and they can defend their life with it, because they always need that. Right. Yeah. After that, let them decide whatever they want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, no, and I've always said that I think, for my kids, I want them to be, if we're measuring it USPSA verbiage, I want them to be a high D class or like a low C class.
Yeah.
You're able to shoot, you're able to hold groups, you're able to move around, you can do reloads. Are you pretty proficient? Not really, but you can
defend yourself.
You could defend yourself.
And that's
right?
the main thing.
Because I'll put it up. Any D to C level shooter, they're fine.
Yeah.
They can defend themselves, no problem. Yep. Right. They know 100%. How to not get DQ'd, so they know muzzle safe direction.
Exactly.
Trigger control is good enough.
Yep.
Right. You know, they don't need
They
to
can
be
shoot a target at
25 yards.
Yeah, 7 to 10 yards very proficiently,
Yes.
and they can like get hits at 25 yards.
Correct. Yeah.
And then you're good.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yep.
So, that's a good thing to have realistic expectations of the kids. Like, you know, you don't need to be hitting groups, you know, nickel sized groups at 50 yards. Like that's,
and then like if they get like, so like, you definitely want to, if they hit a bullseye target, like, get excited with them.
Yeah.
But don't make that the expectation now. Right. Because like sometimes they'll make it so big that they did that to everyone else. And now they feel like, man, I have to do that every time. Now.
Correct.
And now you're just going to discourage them whenever they go out again. They can't do that. Right. So it's like, no, keep it fun for them. Like, oh, that was a great shot, you know, like, but keep it going.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because I mean, even this is with adults, right? A lot of times if you see their pattern, if you see the pattern is like, you know, 2 handfuls big, large pattern, and they hit one bull, you're like, oh, they think they're good. It's like, no. Look at the sum of your work here,
Exactly.
Right? Now, if you're hitting the 10 ring, you know, 10 times out of 10, like, okay, then that's a different thing.
Right.
You know, but anybody can luck into one shot hitting the bullseye.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So don't make that like the new standard for them every time they go.
Correct.
Out, you know?
Yeah. Well, because I mean, even tell you, like when I started shooting in my teens, you know, I'd hit the bullseye every now and then, but it was a chance happening. It's like, oh crap, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And you kind of go into the tank of,
how did I do it?
Man, I need to do that again. And then the rest of the day was shot because like, well, clearly I didn't have the fundamentals then to be able to recreate it.
Yep. You're forcing it.
I was forcing it. Yeah. And so, you know, just that anxiety alone of like trying to do it again, let alone having a parent or, you know, some loved one saying, okay, now you got to do that.
Yep.
Now you got to do that.
And now they're letting down their parent. Right. And that's a huge thing for a kid. Like they don't want to let down their parents. So like, don't make it seem like that.
Correct.
Right. That's all I was trying to say.
Well, it's not just in shooting too, right? It's in every sport.
Everything. Yeah.
And every sport in, in academics, in life, the whole thing.
Yep.
So anyway, I think that's good enough. Word to the sponsors, go to Sentry Def, go shoot at Sentry, Defense. Go get your deadlock at sentrymanufacturing.com or your gas lock. Both of them are out now. Get some cookies from Matt Thalicator. Go to the website. And lastly, and most importantly, go donate to Blake.
Yep. Yeah. And vote for U.S. Senate.
Vote for U.S.
If
Senate.
you live in Louisiana.
Yeah. And well, I was going to say, even if you don't, but
if you live in Florida and you have our old machines, like
that's right. Yeah. No, at least if you're in Florida, the best thing you can do is donate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
All right. Thanks, guys.